Charlotte, you need to listen to me. There's something going down in Hurricane. Long shadows have been cast by Freddy's past, and it threatens the very existence of this town. You need to meet me at the hill by the graves. You know where I mean. When you get there, I'll explain everything. Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to another discussions video. And welcome back to my FNAF novel rewritten universe, because today's video is going to be a sequel to my rewritten fourth closet video, which means that ending, the characters in there, all that kind of stuff is going to be continuing in a story that would take place obviously after that. So I just think this would be a fun way to sort of continue on this novel rewritten universe, which is one of my favorite things that I've done here on the channel, and also gives some closure to characters and questions that hadn't gotten answered in the previous video. So hopefully this can be like a kind of big finale that the last one tried to be, but left some questions unanswered. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I kind of want to just jump right on into things because this is going to be fun and we've got a lot to cover. So without further ado, we're going to get into the rest of the video. We're going to start with recap and rules, and then we'll move into the main story, and that will kind of be it for the video. So again, let's do this. Also, before we actually get into things, like and subscribe the video. I'm not asking you to, I'm telling you to like and subscribe the video. All right, let's get into recap and rules. Alright, so for this recap and rules section, obviously I will try to do some recapping. Now, there's not an actual book for me to recap, so I'll be going over some important elements from my previous three novel videos, and just sort of talking about important things that are going to be carried over for this story. Basically, just a little bit of context. And then I'll also talk about some other things relating to the story that I didn't know where else to put, and then we'll actually get into the story itself. Now, if you don't want to see this part, I should have a timestamp up on the video, and I'm hoping to have this video split up into chapters so that you can just skip this part if you want to and go right into the main story. If you're like, I don't really care about the recap and rules, or I remember everything, then you can just go ahead and skip ahead to whatever time it's going to be at. For the rest of you, we can continue on for the recap and the rules. So basically, I want to go over some important elements now. I would still recommend watching my previous three videos, and that way you can get some more context. Now, I know they're long, but this video can wait. So I just recommend watching them, especially the fourth closet rewrite, but I'd say all of them, you get some more context. Anyway, what am I recapping here? So important things going into this story that you should know from my previous videos. John and Charlie, especially Charlie, have a lot of similarities, but also some big differences between them in the actual novel trilogy and my novel rewrites. So the biggest thing with Charlie is that she is a human being. She's not a robot. There's no, well, there was a Robo Charlie, that's a whole different thing, but Charlie herself, not a robot. She's a person. She's a human being. She was never killed. She's just a person. That's a big important thing. And her and John are like much closer, like they're way closer in my novel rewrites because I can, and so they're much closer relationship. And at the end of my fourth closet rewrite, they actually get engaged. John proposes to her, and so it leads into them getting married as of the story that is going to be for this video. So in here, they are going to be married. Now, they did marry a little young, but like 20, I think, or like 21, somewhere in there. And so it's a little young, but I know people who got married around this time, so whatever. Anyway, that's John and Charlie's thing. Another important character is Sammy / the puppet. Now, in my rewrites, instead of having Charlie be killed and become some robot iteration of herself, I actually had Sammy get killed and go on to possess the puppet in pretty much the same way that Charlie does in Pizza Sim. So like, they're at whatever location, whether it's Fredbear's or whatever. In mine, for the novels, it's Fredbear's, and Sammy is killed outside. The puppet goes out, finds him, he goes on to possess the puppet. It's the same sort of deal. It's just Sammy and not Charlie. And so Sammy has possessed the puppet for quite a decent amount of time, seeing as he was killed in 1983. And now this story takes place in 2000. So he's been the puppet for a good long chunk of time. And he basically just kind of acts like a person. Like, he's not going around being all like puppety like the puppet is in the games. He's just sort of like a person. Like, he just chills out, he watches TV, he's just kind of a guy. And that's my Sammy puppet take. And he's going to be an important character for the story. He's going to be a third main character, so that's going to be pretty important for here. And then to kind of just wrap up this recap part, going over the fourth closet ending, just a little bit of a refresher. Basically, Henry's old house was actually William's old house, and it was built over top of like the sister location bunker. And so in the final climactic scene, the whole friend group goes down to the bunker to save Carlton and Jason, who were kidnapped by Ennard. And my version of Ennard was a combination of Crying Child, Elizabeth, and then like some random AI, and they were all combined into Ennard, who could like shapeshift. It was kind of cool. I'd recommend watching the video. But basically what happens is they all go down there, they confront Afton, and Crying Child takes over Ennard. Instead of getting bullied by Elizabeth and all this kind of stuff, he takes control of Ennard. He gets the rest of the front group to get the heck out of the bunker, and he basically blows the whole bunker up with him and Afton still inside, killing both of them and saving the day. And that's basically how it ends. And then again, you know, John and Charlie get engaged. And that's kind of the fourth closet ending. Well, my version of the fourth closet ending. And so now this story is going to take place 3 years after that. So that was 1997. This is 2000. 3 years after those events. And so just a little bit of some minor story context before we get into things. It will be explained more in the actual like story itself, but I feel I want to bring up a couple things here just to get people, like, just to get some context. So basically, important things to know. Aunt Jen, she had a house and she died, and she gave that house to John and Charlie. And so John and Charlie and Sammy, since Sammy doesn't have anywhere else to live, he just lives with them, they live in this house. So they have their own home. And it's a little bit of a set piece. She also owned the property to Henry/William's old house where the bunker was located. All of that's pretty much gone because the house collapsed and the Twisted Ones, all this kind of stuff. So basically it's just like this empty plot of land that like nothing's on anymore except for a bunch of like burnt soil and stuff like this. So she actually sold the property to the town of Hurricane for them to do whatever they wanted. Like, whatever they wanted to do with this property, it's theirs now. And they sold it off to this company known as Schmidt Industries. And they bought it. They built a factory there that takes place about like a year before the start of the story. And so they kind of build like a factory. Since they're an industrial company, I don't know what they make, refrigerators or something. Like, they make stuff. They make industrial equipment or something, and they built a factory over top of this location. And that's kind of like the important things to know going into this. So with that aside, it's time to get into the story itself. And so we're just going to start off with the start of the story, obviously. And how I'm going to do this is it's going to be like my other novel rewrite videos, where I would go through and I kind of just read the story like an audiobook, like a Spark Notes audiobook. Pretty much is how this is going to go. So sit back, relax. There won't be too many visuals. There actually will be a scene closer to the end, which is going to involve voice acting and a little bit of visuals. But I'll let you guys know when that's coming up so that it doesn't just like surprise you. But I'll let you guys know when that's happening. Aside from that, it's basically just going to be like put this on while you're working and call it a day. So without further ado, let's get into the main story, since that's why you're here. A man wakes up, opening his eyes to the darkness around him, but he cannot move. As he looks around, he sees it, the shadow of something standing in the corner of his room, its bright eyes looking over at him. He can't tell if this is a dream or something real. He soon finds out when the shadow moves in towards him and absorbs with him, leaving a pale body with hollow eyes and dark tears streaking down his face. Henry races down the street, driving as fast as he can. He left Freddy's in such a hurry that he hadn't even brought Charlie along. She'll be fine there. That John kid always seems to be there for her. He sees his driveway and swerves down it and comes to a screeching halt. Practically flying out of his car, Henry races over to his workshop, flinging the door open. The puppet stands up, walking over to him. He asks if everything's okay, and Henry responds saying, "Sammy, you haven't seen anybody in here, have you?" Sammy says he hasn't, and Henry lets out a sigh of relief. He had heard William was back in town, and got the feeling that he was going to try something. Henry thought that William would be here, and that this is what he wanted. Just then, the police scanner goes off, calling additional units to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, as several kids had been reported missing. Henry freezes. Of course, he should have known. He tells Sammy to follow him, and the two head into the house and up to Charlie's room. Henry grabs out a set of keys and unlocks the room's fourth closet, revealing a large latched box. He unlocks it, opening it up to reveal that there's nothing inside. Henry tells Sammy that he needs to hide in this box for his safety. Sammy asks why, and Henry tells him that he just needs to do what he says. As Sammy climbs into the box, Henry rips open a puppet plush and hides 2 keys inside, sewing it back up. He turns and says goodbye to Sammy before closing the lid and locking it. Sammy wakes up finding himself in his room. While he doesn't need to sleep, he finds that sleeping helps him stay alert and keep his mind sane. He heads out of his room and downstairs to the kitchen. It's been 3 years since the events of the bunker, and Sammy has felt kinda aimless ever since. It's hard to live a normal life when you're a 6'8" creepy puppet animatronic. He's stuck around with John and Charlie since he doesn't have anywhere else to live, and he lives in the same house as them. They got married about 2 years back, and around a year ago, they all moved in here to Aunt Jen's house. She had passed away then and left the house to Charlie, and gave away the property of the old house in the bunker to the city to have them do whatever they want with it. He thought that that was a strange choice, but if that's what she wanted, then it's fine. Interestingly too, a new factory was built there not too long after that, and it belongs to some Schmidt Industries or something like that. Sammy doesn't really pay much attention to Hurricane anymore. Everything has changed so much, and he just doesn't know what to do anymore. He hears the two coming downstairs and gets the plates out for them. Charlie walks in first, commenting on the cooking apron that Sammy's wearing, followed by John commenting on the smell of bacon. Sammy always tries his best to cook food for them, though it's hard to do that since he can't eat or taste anything. Charlie and John sit down at the kitchen table, and Sammy serves them breakfast. Waffles, bacon, and eggs, just the typical stuff. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Charlie and John just look happy together, but Sammy won't ever be able to experience something like that. And who knows how long he can actually live like this before the body of the puppet begins to fail. He tells them to enjoy their food, and he walks away. Charlie and John finish up breakfast, and John brings the dishes to the sink and starts to wash them. Charlie talks to John, saying that she's worried about Sammy. He's just been kind of acting down lately, and while she tries to keep him included in things, there's only so much a giant puppet animatronic can be involved in. John says that he'll try to talk to Sammy once he finishes up with the dishes. So he finishes up the dishes and brings up that they should pack up the rest of what they need for the trip. It's that time of year again, and whoever of the friend group can make it to the meeting in Hurricane is going to be there. Charlie brings up the idea of taking Sammy along. It would be good to get him out of the house, and he might enjoy seeing the others. John agrees and says that he'll talk to Sammy. The two head back upstairs, with Charlie heading over to their bedroom and John going over to Sammy's room. He knocks on the door and Sammy lets him in. John brings up the whole friend group getting together and tells Sammy that they want him to join them for it. Sammy, sitting on his bed, nods his head in agreement and says that he'll go with. John walks over and sits next to him and asks if everything's okay. Sammy says that he's fine, but is just feeling a bit aimless. He could never have a normal life, and there really isn't anything important for him to do anymore. All he does now is cook breakfast and clean up the house. That's really about it. John says that he understands the feeling and tells Sammy about how dark of a place he was in when he thought he had lost Charlie those few years back. But when you have people around you who care, That's what living is really all about. And they both care about Sammy. They go in for a hug, and John gets up saying that they need to finish packing. Sammy brings up that he really doesn't need to pack anything, and John suggests that he find some stuff to bring anyways. It might make him feel a bit more normal. He leaves and heads over to their bedroom. He walks in and talks to Charlie, saying that Sammy is going to be coming with them. But he does notice how down he is, and he's worried too. Hopefully this trip can help. They finish up packing, and all three head out of the house and get in John's car, driving off to Hurricane. A man walks down the various hallways of the factory, making his way towards the executive office. As he walks, he looks through various files and notes regarding the progress on some projects. Most are failed, with some showing more promise than others. He just can't figure out what he's missing. This should work. He reaches the doors to the executive office and enters the room. An older woman looks up from her desk and stands up to greet him. She asks how Mike is doing, and Mike says that progress has been slow, with the many failed projects being the only thing to show for their efforts. She reassures him that they will succeed, and it will just take some time. She tells Mike that he's a smart man, smarter than his father ever was. Mike nods his head in agreement and turns to leave, saying goodbye to his mother. He walks off and back down the hallways. He is a smarter man than his father. He would show everybody and prove himself when he succeeds. Sammy opens his eyes and finds himself back in the box, constrained and constricted, barely able to move. He cries out for somebody to help him, for someone to let him out, and that's when he hears it. A door open, and the locks on the box are taken off. The lid is open, and he's finally free. He looks over to see who opened it, but there's no one there. Sammy gets out of the box and enters Charlie's old room, looking around, and he still doesn't see anybody. Walking out into the hallway, he finds the house completely empty and silent. He walks out of the front door, and that's when he hears a noise coming from Henry's workshop. He walks over and enters, but finds no one there. As he turns to leave, he comes face to face with Springtrap. Sammy shoots up in the car, screaming. Charlie screams in response, and John swerves the car a little bit before correcting himself and getting back to the regular drive. Charlie turns around, asking if he's okay. Sammy says it was just some random nightmare, and goes back to looking out the window. She asks if he wants to talk about it, and he says he just wants to look out the window. Charlie turns back around. After another bit of time, Sammy feels himself getting tired again and fades back out to sleep. Charlie, noticing he's asleep again, starts to talk to John, saying that she's even more worried about him now. John brings up how he's acting a lot like she was back in the day with all these crazy events were happening. Charlie says that that's what is worrying her. Either something bad is going to happen or Sammy is just losing his mind, and both are scary options. After about another 3 hours of driving, they finally arrive at Hurricane, passing the town sign. They drive past where the old house was and see the new Schmidt factory. They had heard a bit about it, but this is their first time seeing it. While its location was a bit odd, it was nice to see some new jobs and life being brought into the town. They pull up to their motel and John goes to check in. Charlie turns back around to Sammy and slowly nudges him awake, saying that they finally made it to the motel. Sammy sits up, stretching. Charlie gets out of the car and starts to grab their stuff from the trunk. They didn't really pack much, just some clothes and other stuff they would need for a few days away from home. It'll be nice to have some time off. Her and John have been so busy with their jobs that they really haven't had much time for a getaway. John walks back to the car with the key to their motel room and grabs some of their stuff. Sammy gets out of the car and helps bring some stuff in too. There really isn't anyone around to see him, and the few people that are there aren't looking over at him. They enter the room and get themselves unpacked. Looking at the time, they decide to head out for the diner. The group is probably already there waiting for them. They pull up to the diner and can see John and Carlton waiting inside. The three get out and walk up to the diner. Sammy is hesitant to go in, and Charlie tells him that it will be fine. They go in, and a few other people there look over, and then they just go back to what they're doing. Hurricane's a pretty weird town, so people are pretty used to it at this point. Jessica and Carlton get up and go over to greet them, going in for hugs and, all the greeting whatever. After that, they all go sit down and begin to catch up on things. Carlton says that Lamar and Marla are unable to make it this year as they are on a trip to Italy, and Jason is busy with some summer classes and wasn't able to make it either. Nonetheless, everybody is happy to see each other, and they do a bit of talking. Jessica is working on various applications for archaeology and historical site work. Carlton is on his way to becoming an actor, starting off his career in various smaller projects. John and Charlie talk about how they've been doing, and that John is back working at construction, but he's made his way up to site manager. Charlie is on her way to becoming a therapist or a counselor. After everything she had gone through in the previous years, she felt that she could use her experiences to help others. Carlton asks Sammy what he's been up to, and Sammy, surprised to be asked anything, says that he really isn't doing much. He's just been learning to cook. Charlie and John confirm how good Sammy is at cooking, and Carlton and Jessica say that they'll have to come over sometime to see for themselves. The group keeps talking until they hear the business's phone ring. Nobody really cares until the waitress comes over and is asking for a Charlie Emily. Charlie, confused and a little concerned, goes over to the phone, answering it. On the other side, she hears a man's voice asking if it is Charlie. She says she is and asks who he is. He tells her that he needs to meet her at the family's graves as soon as possible. With that, he hangs up the phone. Charlie, very concerned now, goes back to the table and tells everybody what that was. She tells them what happened, and Jessica asks if she's actually going to go there. Charlie says that she's going, but would like it if John and Sammy came with her. So they go too. She tells Jessica and Carlton that they'll meet up again tomorrow as planned, but that they're going to leave now. Jessica and Carlton are a little concerned, but understand. The main three leave and drive off to the cemetery. They pull into the cemetery's parking lot, getting out immediately and going over to Charlie's mother's grave. The hill is very close to there. They walk up to the graves, seeing Lily Emily and Sammy Emily on the gravestones. Charlie looks up at the hill and sees someone standing under the tree. She walks up there, followed by John and Sammy. As she gets to the top, she stands a few feet away from the man and asks him what he wants. He sighs and asks Charlie if she remembers all the times they would come up here when she was a kid. Charlie asks him who he is, and the man turns around and she doesn't recognize him immediately. But there's something very familiar about him. She asks him again, and this time he asks if she really can't remember her old man's face. Charlie finally sees it, the glasses, the shape of his face, those distinct green eyes. She asks if it really is her dad, and he tells her that he really is here. Charlie runs over for a hug, tears flowing down her face. John and Sammy stand a little awkwardly just a few feet back. After a few seconds, Charlie gets a sudden sense of reason and pushes away from Henry, starting to get angry with him, asking why he left her and why he never came back and where he was this whole time. Henry says that he'll explain everything soon, but right now there's something bigger happening in Hurricane, something worse than Afton, and he needs their help to stop it. Henry goes on to explain that over the past year, Hurricane has been haunted by strange creatures, shadows of Freddy's past. They have already taken a few lives, leaving their bodies pale and their eyes darkened with black tear streaks down their face. The past of Freddy's and of the Aftons has cast long shadows over the town, and he needs them to help him put an end to everything once and for all. Charlie, still a little unsure about Henry's sudden return, is questioning why they need to be a part of this. He just shows up after 15 years and expects them to help him? They already went through a lot. She already went through hell over the events of the past few years, and Henry just expects her to help? She turns away from him and collapses down to her knees and begins to cry. Henry walks over and puts a hand on her shoulder and kneels down next to her. He hugs her and tells her that he knows what he did hurt her, but there are forces out there that are more dangerous than anything either of them have faced. They just need to work together, all of them, to finally put an end to all of this. He moves so that they can go face to face. He knows she is strong and that she already helps so many, but that his daughter wouldn't turn her back on those who need help. After a moment, she gets up and John walks over to her. She hugs John and turns back to Henry. She says she'll help, but he needs to explain where he was this whole time first. Henry says he'll explain it once they all get back to where they are staying. Charlie, John, and Henry begin to walk back to the cars, and Sammy stands there for a moment. Henry didn't even say anything to him. He walks back to the car. A man sweeps the hard concrete floor of the factory's loading dock. As he's about to finish up, he hears a strange noise, almost like a laugh. He looks around, but can't see anything. And then, that's when he sees it. In the corner of the room, shaded by a piece of machinery, a distorted face stares at him. While it was hard to see what it was, its eyes and wide grin were uncanny, almost human. He could see what looked like a hat of some kind on top of a strange head. Taking a step back, he calls out, asking who's there. No one answers. The eyes just keep watching, before he hears the laugh again, and the eyes fade into the dark. Scared beyond belief, he begins to head back towards the offices, where he can leave for the night. He gets to the office hallways, and as he walks through, he comes up to a set of open doors that lead to a dark, empty room. As he walks past, an arm shoots out from the dark, grabbing the man and dragging him into the room. He screams, and he sees a blurred, rotted, and distorted Freddy Fazbear towering over top of him, his unsettling eyes and almost human teeth facing him. As he screams, Freddy lunges towards him. The screams echo through the building before going silent. Mike comes flying into the factory parking lot and rushes out of his car, running into the building. He races over to the incident scene and finds some of his personnel there waiting for him. Walking into the room, he can see it immediately. The man's body was pale and those darkened eyes. He turns to one of the people there and asks if they've got the incident on camera. They nod their head, and Mike follows them to the security office, where they can go back and watch the footage. Through the grainy pixels, they can see the conference room where the man died, and see Freddy grab and kill the man. Mike puts on a smile. A phantom, he says out loud. Remarkable to see one here, one of his assistants says, watching the footage. He turns to his assistant and says that they should get back to the lab right away. This Phantom Freddy is the most stable one they've seen so far. Whatever they've been doing, it's been working. His assistant nods and leaves the room. Mike turns back to the cameras. Soon, Dad. Soon you'll see. John, Charlie, and Sammy are driving back to the motel. Henry told them that he would meet them there soon. As they drive, Sammy talks to Charlie, saying that it was weird that Henry hadn't said anything to him. Charlie says he's probably just worried about what to say. Sammy starts to get angry and says that after 15 years, he had nothing to say to him. Charlie tells Sammy to calm down and that everything is going to be figured out soon. Sammy sighs and looks back out the window. Why was she being so nice to Henry? He disappeared for 15 years, and she had one little crying session and now she's fine with it? Sammy stares out the window. Why couldn't life just be kind to him for a change? They get back to the motel and see Henry outside waiting for them. They walk over to the motel room and Henry walks over as well. John opens the door and lets Charlie go in first, followed by Sammy and then Henry, and then himself last. Immediately, Henry walks over to Sammy, who is sitting on one of the beds. He sits down next to him and he puts his arms around him and gives Sammy a hug. He apologizes for what he had to do and asks how he's doing. Sammy says he's fine, but just can't understand why he had to stuff him in a box for a decade. Henry sighs and tells Charlie and John to sit down as well. They do, and Henry explains everything that has happened. He starts with the day when William killed at Freddy's. Before that had happened, Henry was there at the building. He had brought Charlie there to hang out with their friends while he did his work in the back. While he was in the back, he had gotten a call from an unknown number, and they told him that William was going to be back in town. Henry asked who it was, but she never told him her name. She told him that she wouldn't be surprised if William tried to do something to get back at Henry. After that, she hung up the phone. Realizing that this information could be true, William might be trying to get back to the bunker. Henry raced out of the building. He got home, but figured out too late that William's plan was to kill and not to go for the bunker. That's when he hid away Sammy, and he was worried William might try to take him away. And Henry didn't want to lose Sammy a second time. After that, he did some more digging through his workshop as quickly as he could before the police could arrive to the house for questioning. As he went through his stuff, he began to remember the phone call with that woman. The voice was familiar. He eventually realized that it was Clara's voice, William's ex-wife. Whether it was to do with everything that had happened or if he really was able to figure it out, Henry put together that maybe Clara had been in on the plan with William to get back at Henry, and that the call was to lure him away from the restaurant. With little time left, Henry had to flee. He was suspect number 1 for the kids' deaths, and with him driving off from the location in a hurry, it probably looked like he was fleeing. Henry had to leave. It wasn't safe for anybody if he stayed there. He drove away from his family, but was determined to make sure that they stayed safe. He had tried to get back to Hurricane a few years back, but got there too late, and they had already killed William. He figured his job was done then, but about a year ago, those strange phantoms began showing up, and that was around the same time that the Schmidt factory was built. Henry finishes up his story, saying that this conspiracy is too big for him to deal with alone, and that he has decided to finally reach back out to his family and make the call for help to Charlie. Charlie and Sammy process everything Henry told them, and Charlie is the first to speak up after that. She tells Henry that she forgives him and goes in for a hug. They embrace, and it's a nice, sweet family reunion. Sammy, on the other hand, speaks up, saying that he doesn't forgive Henry for shoving him in a box for a decade for no good reason behind it. He starts to yell more, and Charlie tries to calm him down. Henry remains silent. Sammy only gets more frustrated, saying how Charlie just goes along with everything Henry was saying and just forgives him like that. He continues to argue before he storms out of the motel room. Charlie tries to go and follow, but John stops her. Charlie turns back to Henry and asks him why he wasn't talking to Sammy. They're both his kids, and he should go and talk to him and comfort him. Henry just says he's not sure what else to say to Sammy. He never thought he would actually get to see him again, even as the puppet. Charlie, overwhelmed by everything, says that they should call it a night and that Henry should probably go find Sammy. Mike walks into the executive office with a sharp grin on his face. Evelyn looks up from her desk and asks what's gotten him into such good spirits. Mike shows her the progress report on the latest round of testing. He tells her that they are close to achieving what they came here to do. They just need more remnants to work with. Evelyn reminds him that they don't have much from the site as is, and that their supply from there is running low. That's when Mike says he knows where they can get more. He shows her a picture from a surveillance camera outside of the motel, showing the puppet. If they can get their hands on the puppet, that should give them what they need to complete their project. Evelyn tells him it's time to visit an old friend. Jessica sits across from Carlton in the living room of his dad's house. It's nice of Clay to still allow her to stay here even after everything that happened with the Freddy's situation. Speaking of, Clay walks into the room. Jessica asks if he was able to get a hold of Charlie, and he says he can't. He tried the motel's front desk and the room line, but he can't get through. Jessica and Carlton look at each other. After the weird phone call at the diner, they were worried about Charlie. The last time something like this happened, they had to face down a corpse in a decayed rabbit suit. Maybe they could just head over for a visit. Carlton says he'll drive, and the two head out towards the motel. They just want to make sure Charlie and John are safe. As they're driving, they turn a corner and see something standing in the middle of the road. Carlton slams on his brakes, and the two look up at it. "Is that Foxy?" Carlton says, with shock and fear in his voice. A dark, faded, and decayed Foxy was standing in the middle of the road. He had a large, almost human eye and a wide grin of bright teeth. He just stood there, staring at them. Suddenly, he began to charge the car. Panicked, Carlton tried to put it in reverse, but in his flailing around, he hit the car's high beams on. They heard a sharp screech and look up to see Foxy trying to get out of the light, before his form phased with the shadows of nearby objects, as if he just blended into their shadow. Before they knew what on earth was happening, he was gone. The two of them just turn and look at each other. Now they have to get to Charlie. Sammy walks on a trail in the nearby woods, just trying to get his mind off of everything. His own dad would barely even say a word to him, and his sister seemed to not be on his side either. John was the only one who seemed to care at all, but he rarely ever spoke up in a heated discussion. As he walks, he suddenly hears a branch crack. He looks around, staring into the dark of the woods, only lit up by the faint moonlight and a few nearby lampposts. He stares into the woods and doesn't see anything. That's when he hears footsteps and a voice call out to him. He turns around to see a man, maybe in his early 30s, walking out of the shadows and into the light of the lamppost. He says hi to Sammy, saying his name directly, and that it's been some time since they've last met. Sammy, starting to get really scared, asks who he is. The man just smiles and says his brother would have loved to see him again. Suddenly, Sammy feels a sharp stab going through his back, followed by a surge of electricity. He falls to the ground and looks up to see the man direct several other people to tie up the puppet. Sammy slips into the dark. Charlie and John sit together in their motel room. Charlie is worried about Sammy. While she has mixed feelings about her dad just showing back up again, she was hoping Sammy would at least be happy to see him. Then again, she wasn't killed, brought back to life in a puppet, then shoved in a box by her dad. She leans her head onto John's shoulder. The two just sit there, before they jump up at the sound of knocking coming from their door. John gets up and looks through the little hole, then opens the door. It's Jessica and Carlton, and they look shaken. John lets them in and closes the door behind them. Charlie asks what they are doing there, and the two start talking about how they think something weird is going on in Hurricane, and that they saw Foxy on the way here, but he seemed to become part of the shadows around him. Charlie interrupts them, telling them that they actually kind of know what's going on, at least somewhat, and that it's a really long story, but her dad is back and explained it to them. Jessica and Carlton are even more shocked than confused, and ask if Charlie is telling the truth. John confirms it, and the two are even more concerned now. Charlie had hoped to leave them out of it this time, but it looks like they'll have to put the band back together one last time. Charlie tells them to sit down, and she begins to explain everything they know so far. Henry walks down the trail, hoping to find some clue as to where Sammy went. How had he been so stupid? He should have talked to Sammy more, but was too scared to even confront what to say. Did he really need to lock him in a box for so long? It seemed reasonable at the time. Where else was Sammy supposed to go? But now? He walks a little further, before he stops and looks down at the ground. He bends down and picks up a piece of chipped white porcelain. Sammy's mask. What had happened to him? Where was he? What had Henry done? Sammy opens his eyes and looks around the room he finds himself in. The room was dark and filled with industrial equipment, with tubes leading in and out of things, and various workstations spread around the room. He tried to move, but found his hands and legs restrained. He tried to work harder to free himself, but that's when he heard the voice again. The man walked forward, saying that leaving isn't an option yet, not until they're done with him. Sammy asks what's going on and who the man is. The man says his name is Mike Schmidt. Sammy thinks for a second and remembers Michael Afton. Sammy says that out loud. Mike smiles, as saying he hasn't heard that name in a long time, not since they were all kids. Sammy begins to remember more now. David's older brother, Michael. He was the odd one of the Afton kids. He never seemed to live up to what William had wanted in a son. Sammy tried to put on a brave face, telling Mike that whatever he wants from him, he won't give it. He would rather die than whatever kind of experiment Mike's got going on. Mike begins to laugh and assures Sammy that he will, in fact, die. That's kind of actually the whole plan. He needs Sammy dead for his project to work. Sammy tries to push a little further and tells Mike that this project will fail, just like William's did. If William failed, what could Mike do that would make him succeed? Mike's smile drops to a glare, and he tells Sammy that William was smart but blind. Mike, on the other hand, is twice the man William wished he could be. Mike turns and walks over to the computer station a few feet away. He tells Sammy that this will hurt, and types in a few keys, then presses enter. Suddenly, Sammy's body is filled with searing hot pain, and electricity begins to shock him as well. Mike turns and begins to walk away, hoping that the setup is agonizing enough for Sammy. Mike walks out of the room. After explaining everything, Carlton and Jessica are determined to help Charlie and John in any way they can. They do a little let's go team hand pile thing and start to brainstorm their next move. John thinks the Schmidt factory has something to do with all of this since it was built over top of the old house and bunker site. They all agree, and they'll begin their work there to determine what could be causing these phantoms of Freddy's past to return. Just then, more knocking comes from the door. John goes over and opens it for Henry. Carlton and Jessica look a little shocked again, and Henry asks what they are doing there. Charlie explains that they ran into a phantom and that they want to help. Henry assures them that the help is appreciated, especially since somebody took Sammy. Charlie starts to freak out, asking if he knows what happened or who took him. Henry says he doesn't, but that it probably has to do with all of the weird stuff going on in town. Henry joins in with their little planning session, believing that the factory is a good place to start too. While John and Carlton are pushing for a more forceful approach to get in, Charlie and Jessica are hoping to join the upcoming factory tour that the Schmidts are putting on for the town. It might be a good place to get answers. Evelyn sits in her office, staring out the window. She still hadn't completely gotten used to her new name, but it suits her new self. Well, William was a very important part of her life, and hopefully will be soon. She needed to distance herself from him. His push for revenge against Henry was blinding him from what his experiments could truly achieve. Immortality, powers beyond their wildest dreams, and hopefully, for her, a reunited family. She turns back around and looks at the picture of her and Mike from years ago. She remembers that time when William's lust for revenge took away the life of her little girl, Elizabeth. The blame isn't on him, though. Evelyn thinks back to David's death. Henry's faulty machines killed him. Henry would get what he deserved, but she would not be as blind as William was. She takes a breath and turns to her computer, pulling up the town's surveillance system, which she had given them as a thoughtful gift. She flicks to one outside of the motel Henry and the others are staying at. She knew that they would come back to town as a part of their tradition or whatever, but never expected Henry to return. They were starting to get too close to figuring things out. She had to make sure that they don't. Evelyn looks up from her computer and into the darkness of her office and sees the forms of a bear and a fox emerge for her to see them. She tells them that they have a special place to visit tonight. Mike walks through the floor of the factory, ensuring the place is clear enough for the public tour. While he was very much against the idea, his mother seemed to think it would be a good PR stunt and hopefully draw more people into trusting Schmidt Industries. The tighter control over the town, the safer they were. He continues to walk, and as he goes, his assistant runs up to him, informing him that something extraordinary has happened with the project. Mike rushes over to the research wing and enters the room where Sammy is being held. Carlton and Jessica leave for the night, hoping to get back to Clay's house for some sleep. Henry says he'll be in a nearby room if they need him, and he leaves as well. John and Charlie get ready for bed and climb in together. While normally her worrying would keep her up, Charlie falls asleep fast tonight, with her being exhausted by the events of the day. As she fades into sleep, she enters a dream. She finds herself back in her old house. It's quiet and dark. She calls out but gets no reply. As she walks up the stairs, she looks up to see a darkened silhouette of the puppet standing at the top of the stairs. It moves into her old room. Charlie walks up the stairs after it and enters her room. She sees everything as it was all that time ago. And that's when she hears a noise coming from the fourth closet of her room. She opens it and is greeted by a jump scare from a darkened, rotten, and broken puppet. Charlie shoots up in bed, screaming. John wakes up, grabbing her to calm her down. Charlie looks around the room, and that's when she sees a set of eyes and a wide grin staring at her from the dark. She can barely make out the silhouette of Foxy before John sees it too. They suddenly hear a noise outside and see what looks like Freddy hobbling past the motel window over to their door. They are now surrounded. John goes for the phone, and Charlie keeps an eye on Foxy, who is just grinning at her. Freddy then walks through the door, entering the room. John turns his attention to Freddy. The two are stuck in a staring game, seemingly keeping these phantoms at bay. Right as Freddy takes a step forward, a bright light from behind him sends him screeching, and he slips into the shadows of the room. Charlie looks back over to the door and sees Henry with a bright flashlight standing there. Charlie looks back over to Foxy and sees him jumping in the air towards her. She shields herself and feels John grab her, but then hear Foxy screech too. She looks back over to see Henry had got him with a flashlight as well. He checks to make sure the two are okay and says that he's never seen more than one at a time. It's odd that these things would attack the same place, and John and Charlie, of all people, being the victims. Henry has this suspicion that maybe someone or something is controlling these things. The group get what little sleep they can and get up to get ready for the tour. They drive over to the factory and meet up with Jessica and Carlton, and all of them join with the rest of the crowd for the tour. Charlie is surprised with how many people are here for this. The front doors open and Evelyn walks out, greeting the crowd and welcoming them in. Charlie looks over to John, and John looks back. They join hands and walk in. The start of the tour is pretty boring, just showcasing some of the various products that they've made and how they've helped out the town so much. Charlie gets bored by it all and begins to daydream. Charlie does notice that Henry seems very deep in thought, like he's trying to put some pieces together. She asks him if he's okay, and he says that he recognizes Evelyn, but can't quite figure out from where. As she leads the tour, they reach a work floor, and she begins to explain what they do here. Then, Mike walks up to her, whispers something to her, and walks off. She says she apologizes, but the tour will need to be carried on by an assistant. She's had some matters that have come up that she needs to tend to. She walks off, and another worker comes up to continue the tour. That's when Henry puts it together. He takes the group aside for a second and reveals that Evelyn is actually Clara Afton, William's ex-wife. The man that talked to her looked a lot like Michael. The group is shocked, and now everything starts to make sense. That's why they wanted this plot of land, and that explains why all of the Freddy's related things are happening. They must be behind everything. Mike and Evelyn enter her office, and he explains that Henry, his daughter, along with her friends, are here at the factory. They could jeopardize everything they've been working on. Evelyn is a little bit concerned, but says that they can handle it. Just cut the tour early and ensure that the group stays behind. It would be nice to catch up with some old friends again, and maybe reunite their family too. Mike smiles. He calls up the tour guide over a walkie-talkie and tells him to end the tour. Explain to the crowd that there's been a small accident on one of the work zones, and for everybody's safety, they need to leave. The assistant complies, and Evelyn tells Mike to get Sammy ready for a visit. Charlie is confused as to why the tour is ending early, but reasons that maybe the Aftons found out that they were here. The group is able to sneak around the security and stay after everyone else is escorted out. As they try to make their way to the back offices, they are confronted on a workplace floor by Evelyn and Mike. They say it's good to see Henry and Charlie again, and that it's a real shame they couldn't be here on better terms. Charlie asks what they've done to Sammy, and Mike tells her that Sammy is fine. In fact, he's never been better. Evelyn calls out for Sammy, and a distorted and broken puppet floats down next to her. Charlie asks Sammy if he's okay, but the puppet just stands there, not saying anything. They do a little bit more back and forth, and Henry kind of starts to rage bait Mike, who says that he has one more person he'd like to introduce to everybody else. Mike turns and runs off, leading John, Carlton, and Henry away from the others. Charlie and Jessica are left to face Evelyn and the shadows. Charlie stands there, begging Sammy to come back to her, but it seems of no use. She then tries to use the bright flashlight provided by Henry to stop and stun the puppet, but he just stands there, not moving. Evelyn tells them that Sammy here is the real deal, not some illusion or phantom. They found a way to make these things real, with a physical form. Charlie and Jessica get ready to deal with Phantom Puppet, while the shadows around them slowly start forming together. Voice acting time! John, Carlton, and Henry chase Mike through the facility. Eventually, he reaches a large door and runs inside, and they follow him. As they enter the room, they see a large containment unit and Mike standing in front of it. A set of controls are on his left, and he stands there waiting for them. John looks at the containment unit and sees one of the shadows inside, but something is different about this one. The large rabbit ears and distinctive buck teeth are unmistakable.
William.
Shadowtrap looks over at them, its bright eyes and teeth gleaming at them. It moves in closer, and Mike turns and looks at it. He turns back to the rest of the group.
He's almost complete. My father was a brilliant man, but he made the mistake of letting personal vengeance get in the way of his work. We, on the other hand, put the work first. Years of dedication have gone into this project, and soon it will be ready.
Mike gestures over to the containment unit, showing off Shadowtrap. Henry speaks up. Your father was an idiot and a fool. His arrogance blinded him to the truth. I never ruined his life. That honor goes to you. He points at Mike. Shadowtrap shifts his gaze over to Mike.
I may have hurt David, but his spirit had lived on. It was you, John, that killed him.
Mike exclaims, now pointing at John. John replies,
Your brother gave his life to put an end to this madness, to the pain William caused. The way I see it, he was more of a man than you'll ever be.
Mike, falling for the rage bait, gets increasingly more mad.
I've become a stronger and smarter man than anyone, including my father. He let his petty problems with you and Charlie get in the way of his work. I've moved past that, and I've moved past him. All I need is to bring him back and show him everything I've accomplished on my own. I don't need anyone, let alone some deadbeat who got stuck in a rabbit suit.
Mike turns and starts messing with some of the controls. As he works, Shadowtrap shifts over, merging with Mike's shadow, which is being projected into the chamber. Shadowtrap then lunges forward, and Mike screams out, collapsing to the floor. A few moments later, he stands back up and turns back towards the group. His skin is pale, and his eyes are hollow black. Dark streaks flow under his eyes. Small white pupils form and begin to look around. He looks over at the group and stops at Henry.
My time has not done you well, old friend.
I could say the same about you, William.
I won't let David's death be in vain.
Shadowtrap takes a step forward.
You have no idea what kind of forces you are dealing with. This time, I will ensure you all die.
Sammy moves in to attack Charlie, jumping at her and trying to reach her with the long arms of the puppet. As this is happening, the shadows of the room form into a dark shadow puppet, and Jessica calls out for Charlie to give her the flashlight. Charlie tosses it to her, and she starts using it to fend off Shadow Puppet. The two start being guided out of the area and into the halls of the back offices. Evelyn is following them close behind, ensuring that they get to where they need to go. John, Carlton, and Henry start falling back as Shadowtrap starts to attack the group. Despite being in a physical body, he can still manipulate the shadows around him, and works to try to capture the group. His main focus is Henry, as William's rage has always been directed there. Realizing that the physical form can be injured, Henry devises a plan to lure Shadowtrap back into the containment unit and seal his physical body in there while using the system set up by Mike to kill it once and for all. He quickly tells John that he needs to be ready on the controls to the containment unit, and that Henry is going to lure Shadowtrap back into the unit. Henry runs off, dragging Shadowtrap's attention to him. John runs over to the controls and, not knowing what to do, presses some buttons until the door opens. Henry, seeing this, runs into it and Shadowtrap follows. John tells Henry to get out of there, but Henry says he can't and wants John to seal the unit and activate it. John is hesitant, but Henry tells him that it'll be fine. John seals it, and Henry gives him the okay to overload the system. Shadowtrap sees what's happening, but is just happy that Henry will finally die too. Shadowtrap punches Henry in the stomach, and Henry starts to bleed out. As John pushes more buttons, the chamber starts to spark up, with electricity pouring out of various points from inside the unit. Henry looks up at Shadowtrap and says goodbye to his old friend. Shadowtrap smiles back. The unit starts to spark, and John and Carlton are forced to leave the area. It explodes right as they get out of the room. There are no bodies left in there. Charlie and Jessica are forced back further, but they notice that neither puppet is really trying to kill them, just to make them fall back. Eventually, they reach the executive office and are forced inside. Evelyn follows them in and reveals that the other shadows and phantoms waiting in there. She can finally do what William was unable to, and rid herself of these fools. The puppet floats in front of her again, facing Charlie and Jessica. Charlie pleads one more time with Sammy, and that's when the building shakes from the explosion. The puppet suddenly looks around the room, as if it had snapped out of some kind of trance. It looks back at Charlie and Jessica, and hears Evelyn tell it to kill them. It turns back around, and the shadows rejoin with it. The puppet raises its arm in the sky, and the other phantoms turn their attention away from Charlie and Jessica and towards the puppet. Evelyn tells them to finish what they started, and Sammy simply points his hand towards her. The other shadows and phantoms jump up and attack Evelyn out of nowhere, in a gruesome twist. She was blinded once again by revenge. Sammy turns back to Charlie and begins to apologize for everything. Charlie comforts Sammy, and they leave the room. With all the Aftons defeated, the group joins back up, with Charlie saying that Evelyn is gone, and the other shadows and phantoms will hopefully not be a problem anymore. She asks where Henry is, and John is forced to break the news. He explains that Henry gave his life to kill William once and for all, who was brought back from the dead by Mike and Evelyn. Charlie begins to cry, and Sammy stands there, unsure of what to do. He wished he had gotten the chance to talk to Henry one more time. The group consoles each other for a moment, then goes to leave. But they can't go quite yet. The shadows around the halls make sure of that. They hear a distinct laugh and see the shadows form into Shadowtrap once again. He starts to power trip to them, saying that he's truly immortal now, and though the body he took over was lost, he still has this new form of his. And now, with this power, he can control the shadows in the dark. He calls the rest of the shadows and phantoms down, and proceeds to subsume them into his form, creating a monstrous new body. The group is out of options. Sammy opens his eyes and finds himself in a dark abyss. He looks down on his body, and he finds himself back in his 6-year-old form, from the day he was killed. He looks around more and sees a person standing in the distance. He walks over and sees William standing there in a security guard outfit. William turns to Sammy, looking down at him. The two are alone in this void. William asks him what he did, and Sammy says he doesn't really know, but as long as he's trapped here, he can't hurt the others. William grabs Sammy and begins to try to choke him out and kill him. If he can just kill Sammy, maybe he'll be free again. Sammy tries to break free, but is slowly fading out. Suddenly, William is hit in the back of the head and stumbles over. Sammy, gasping, looks up to see David standing in front of him. David helps him up and is joined by the spirits of Elizabeth and Mike. William gets back up and sees this. He shouts out to his kids that they are just disappointments to him, and the 3 Afton children and Sammy turn to William. They all kind of just go over and beat the crap out of him before David delivers the final blow, killing William once and for all. With William's spirit finally dead, Michael, David, and Elizabeth join hands and they move on, finally free from the shadows casted by William. Sammy is left there alone, but that's when he feels a hand on his shoulder. He turns to see Henry standing over him with a smile on his face. Sammy hugs him and the two embrace. Henry tells him how proud he is and that he should go out there and live life to the fullest. He needs to keep Charlie safe and look after everybody. He is the protector. They continue to hug and Henry moves on. Charlie looks in disbelief as Shadow Trap dissolves before their eyes, and all that remains is the broken and damaged suit of the puppet. Charlie runs over and tries to wake him up. Sammy finally shifts his head, and the tear streaks on the mask vanish. He moves in to give Charlie a hug, and the two sit there for a moment. It's finally over. A couple weeks later, and the whole group is reunited at the diner. Marla, Lamar, and Jason were able to make it this time, and Sammy is there too, without the tear streaks on his mask. They all sit around talking, catching up, and just hanging out. As the time goes on, the group slowly gets smaller as people leave, until it's just Charlie, John, and Sammy leaving the diner. They have one more stop to make before they drive home. They pull up to the cemetery and walk over to the grave sites. A new stone was added next to Lily's, saying Henry's name. The three walk up to the top of the hill and sit in the grass as they watch the sunset. They can finally rest as the long shadows casted by Freddy's past are finally gone. Alright, well, I hope that you enjoyed the video and everything that it had to offer. This was a huge undertaking, as most of these videos typically are, and I just hope that it paid off and that you guys enjoyed it. And as we kind of wrap things up here, I'd like to give a special shout out to the Baldwin Birds 2 and Solid Silver for providing some voice lines for the video. Now, I know there really wasn't much of an animated scene, but at least, you know, there was some voice acting there. So I just appreciate them, you know, willing to do that and for providing those lines. I'd also like to give a small shout out to Luke for, you know, just helping out and being supportive of the channel. He didn't provide any voice lines, but that's okay. I just want to give him another shout out anyway, because he helps out with the channel and stuff like that. So just a special thanks to him. And yeah, with that, thanks for watching. We'll do our shameless plugs like we typically do. We got like a ton of stuff in the description: Instagram, channel membership, Patreon, second channel, whole bunch of kind of hullabaloo down there. So go check all of those out if you want to. And speaking of the channel membership stuff, I'd like to give a big shout out to my current channel members. Thank you guys so much for being my members. You guys know that it does mean a lot to me. I say that every time, but you guys know I do mean it. So thank you so much. And here is your video shout out. And yeah, with that, again, thanks for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed the video and the story and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a little shaky, but that's just my opinion. You know, sometimes the artist isn't impressed with their art. So I hope that you guys found it fun and enjoyable. And as we kind of wrap things up, I obviously have to do my 2 questions of the day, since we typically do that. So question number 1, what did you think of the video? Did you like the story? Did you know, not like the story? What did you like, the themes, whatever? Just what did you think of the video and the stuff that I brought up in it? So that's your first question. Your second question is, do you think I should continue this novel rewritten universe in some way, shape, or form? Whether it's like a prequel or like a spin-off or something like that. I don't think I'll do a sequel to this one just because I don't think there's anywhere else for this to go. But if you have like, if you want me to do like a prequel or a spin-off or something like that, then also let me know down in the comments below. And yeah, with that, again, for like the millionth time, thanks for watching, and I will see you in tonight's live stream. Goodbye.